And a happy Friday, Friday the 13th. No bad luck, no bad vibes here on Mets Daily. It's Valentine's Day weekend, aka Single Awareness Day tomorrow. Welcome back to the show. Smash that thumbs up on the video. Make sure you subscribe and keep on commenting. Note, we won't read your comments today because we have our monthly guest, our reunion, amazing but true reunion with Nelson Figueroa. What do you shake? What are you SMHing at right now?
You said it as if I'm the monthly friend that comes and, people get all kinds of sad and emotions change, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, of course. It's that one. It's that time of the month. Except you last one day instead of four.
There
That's
you
that's
go.
how this goes. It really almost lasts a day with how long our conversations usually go. We'll try to keep it somewhat shorter today because you are down in Port St. Lucie. You have color naturally being a Puerto Rican man, but you're getting a little extra color, a little red mixed in with the bronze in there.
Oh yeah.
How's the vibes? How's the weather? What's your first impressions here of Mets camp? You've been there all week.
Yeah, so this is year three of the Mendoza era, and this one is different. This one is you're looking at the first year was kind of getting to know him and seeing how he was going to operate. Every single person kind of meeting with him for the first time ever. Now he has a little bit of history, a little bit of rapport with the guys who have been here before, and then the new guys coming over have at least seen him on the other side as he's managed against their teams, and so it's a lot different. I think he's way more comfortable talking with David Stearns and with Mendoza. Year three and the plan that they made in the offseason to move past the core snore that never got anything done, and fans were in an uproar. How could you? How could you? And when you start doing the math and the numbers that they were going to command, really was it really worth the continued pain? So there was a big shakeup, and everybody seemed to be on board. And it looks like they have put together a team that from most by most accounts really is more well-rounded, more athletic. They can do more things. Guys can play multiple positions. You don't have to worry about a superstar only playing one position and that's all I play, or hiding multiple guys who are lackluster on defense. So it's different, and a whole coaching staff brand new, which is crazy. Getting to know those guys all over again, having conversations with them as well. So morale is high. Guys are excited and they're coming out here. And there's one guy that stands out when it comes to getting to meet guys that have a big smile on his face, and that's been Freddie Peralta.
Yeah, you got to speak to him, and leadership was something that was really missing from this team. They had you talk about the core four, but none of those guys were really true leaders. They weren't guys that would demand team meetings and would gather everyone around. Brandon Nimmo didn't even speak in when they did have a team meeting. So, is that the biggest difference you've known? The smile of Peralta. You said how it's different from Mendoza. I just want to know kind of examples of. Obviously, it's only a couple days in. I mean, it's not even official pitchers and catchers day, but I think it's a good sign to see everyone getting there kind of early. You're not really required to get there until a certain date. So, what are those exact differences? Just besides it actually just being a completely different looking team.
So remember, a lot of it was you had a bunch of superstars, household names, or guys that you're used to seeing, and coaching those guys was a little different. You kind of patted them on the back, like, "Hey, you're doing a great job. We love you. You're fantastic at defense." Even though everybody behind closed doors was like, "Oh, this guy's going to struggle." Even though guys are moving positions, guys like Polanco and Bichette have gotten here early to start their work that we know that they're being called upon to do. The willingness for them to play those positions. Look at Rafael Devers, right? Superstar who said, "I'm not playing first base. Too much responsibility. Not going to make the change." And wind up getting traded away from the organization, even though he was the franchise player. I look at this as you got a lot of people to buy in very early, and they went down. They're doing the work. You've got the coaching staff that has some new faces, but there's some old school guys like Tim Leeper, who I go back to Tim Leeper from 1995 to 98, being a Met. In the minor leagues, Tim Leeper was there. So it's good to see there's a blend of some old school, some new school. There's guys that are really just getting in the ear of these players and, trying to get them to understand responsibilities, how move their body better, how much of the timing is there. And so you're able to see that there's a willingness to learn. And I think that's been something that right out the chute has been a very different thing. You know, guys are set in their ways of how they like to do things. You know, a guy like Mark Vientos has been down here for a while as well. And he's the guy who seems to be like the odd man out, right? Where does he play? He's going to DH, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. But he's been taking as many reps as he can at both, you know, first and third. And he's in the cages and live BP all over every field, trying to get the reps in. And there's some young guys like a Christian Scott who's, you know, trying to bounce back. Remember when Christian Scott was the guy, and we were so excited about his progress, and then it was curtailed by the injuries. I saw him throw live BP, and he looked outstanding. Like the ball was really coming out of his hand. Carson Benj was up against him, so that you have that youth movement is finally at the cusp. And instead of us having all these questions of why not play these guys, why not play these guys, you know, they're going to give them an opportunity to win jobs, but they know in spring training guys are going to get hurt, and it's going to even itself out. But at the same time, there's not a feeling of the superstars are running the roost and the kids, you know, just sit and watch. I think it's more of a blend of like they know they're going to need these kids, so they already have had them working in lockstep with some of the veteran guys to learn and just get comfortable and not be so overwhelmed by you know, putting on a Met uniform for the first time here in spring training.
It's funny seeing the video of Carson Benj and Bo Bichette just, pounding and saying, "Hi, I'm Carson." And it's like just guys just meeting each other. Like there's no
Yeah.
formal introduction. I don't know if Bo Bichette is just working on an even tan, thirst trapping, or he just likes how he looks without sleeves, but he is going full Has anyone asked him about what? I mean, I think it's great, but it's not like he's like incredibly jacked. He's definitely jacked. He's a baseball player, but he's just thirst trapping his way through pitchers and catchers.
I can tell you right now, I know I'm almost positive his dad did the same thing back when he played, and it was in Colorado even. They used to have the shirtless, remember they had the sleeveless uniforms as well. And so he used to have no undershirt and to show off the pipes. He's been great, man, to be around. The guys love him. And like you just said, they did a live BP yesterday, and it was Peralta coming out for the first time, and you see him literally shaking everybody's hand as he's going out to get ready to go warm up, and he sees Bichette, and they a little pound, a little embrace, you know, and then they're now competing against each other. And one of the cool moments of the whole thing was Peralta's pitching, and you know, you're working on stuff. Bichette the first time around was taking pitches off of Clay Holmes, wasn't swinging, and he got a hold of one against Peralta that was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. Normally during those kind of interactions, guys will, you know, like let out a scream and, you know, show off or flip the bat, and it's all in good fun, you know what I mean? Because it's a friendly competition. But Bichette hit this ball to right field that it was like, and I narrated it on picks, and I go, the fly ball to right field, and it was hit hard, but I was like, a fly ball to right field. I go, and it's gone, and nobody reacted. I have my own video of it. Nobody reacted. Nobody was like, wow, high five, and screaming and yelling. It was just like, he did what he was supposed to do with that pitch. And even Peralta didn't even realize it went out. He said he was told by Bichette later on, he's like, you know, I got you right there. And then they were all laughing about it. But I think that's one of the things is that first you know, kindergarten moment. Hi, my name is Bo. My name is Freddie. You know, let's be friends. You got a lot of guys who have played either with each other, against each other, but they're realizing that they have a chance to do something here in New York, and they got to pull from the same side of the rope. So whatever animosities they had before are gonna, you know, melt away, and they're gonna start realizing that that's gonna take every single one of these guys to get the job done.
That also sounded like a rehab moment. Hi, my name is Bo. Hi, Bo.
Hi.
Yeah, no, and listen, they're learning their lesson. There's no February celebrations pretending you won the World Series. Remember the Mets
No.
were mocked for that a few years ago. We're not going to see that, but this team definitely feels like they have a winning pedigree, and they, you know, I've talked about it nonstop in here. They made it a point to bring in winning players. They bring in players. You know, Freddie Peralta's been in 6 playoff appearances. Bo Bichette just hit a homer in Game 7 of the World Series off Shohei Ohtani. Like they're bringing in guys who know. You know, Jorge Polanco just hit some massive home runs in the postseason. They got clutch. They got pedigree. They got some moxie. Yes, they got some guys out of position. That's the other story here with Bo Bichette. The video going out there of, you know, kind of like the drill where they're just rolling him little balls to third, getting him to get the proper scoopage. And is there any worry with that with Polanco? And, you know, when we talk about the Mets defense, we'll talk about Lindor in a bit. Lindor, Gold Glover, short. You got a Gold Glover and Simeon at second. You got a Gold Glover and Robert in center. You have Soto moving to left, which I think is going to help. You got Benj potentially in right, who's got a cannon. But at first and third are the question marks of two guys who have never played those two positions. How has that worked so far from the infield drills you're watching? And do you think it's? I don't think it's going to be a big deal, but do you see it being an issue at all?
No, not at all. Here's the thing. You're talking about two guys who played shortstop. If you had the hands to play shortstop and the footwork to play shortstop, the normal first baseman used to be, hey, put the fat kid over there to just block the ball and not, have to move a lot. It's no longer like that. Like the range that Polanco has is of a middle infielder. So yesterday they were putting him and they were kind of mapping it out and seeing how far he needed to go, and on every ball that was put in play, he would run to first base, and they were timing it to see how long it would take him to get there. And they were inching out further and further, just trying to see, like, if we needed to do a shift like this and put everybody more up the middle, you could almost play, halfway between second and first, keep that right side, from a ball getting through easily and get over to first base. Or the pitcher definitely has to book it and cover first, and you could feed him. So I think the athleticism part, you have athletes, you have guys at the corners who athletically are more gifted because they came up as shortstops and middle infielders. So it's like the angles are changing, the timing is a little bit different, but once you get to game speed, you're gonna see a lot of videos of, balls being botched or missed and reads. So they're just trying to get used to every scenario, every situation, and they're hitting the ball all different ways, putting spin on it because it's hard to simulate what happens in a game. But one thing I do know is that these two guys they've banded together. They've been walking everywhere together. They've been taking BP in the backfields together. So they banded together, because they realize that it's going to be an important thing to have that relationship on both sides of it. Polanco, he's going to be just fine over there. I don't think there's going to be a worry. Like I said, you normally see corner outfield guys, as they get older, they can't run anymore. They stick them at first base. We've seen a lot of guys go over there and be very serviceable. I think he's going to be way more than serviceable.
I think and I think you're seeing a clubhouse that will come together, and I think the guys that were here in the past thought they ran the show, and it was very much I'm the captain now was kind of and they weren't the actual captain, but the video, I'm the captain now. That's kind of how
Yeah.
Pete was, and I think now there's just a good group of guys and guys who have been to the promised land before, where being a home run king or winning a home run derby means jack what to them. They want to win a championship, and I think that's the Mets' goal. Nelson Figueroa here at Figgy NY, host of New York Nightcap, 11 p.m. Eastern, a late night special on
That's right.
Picks 11. Make sure you tune in and give them a follow. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and comment below, and follow me at Jake Brown Alive. Let's get into some spicy rumors. Yesterday, a releasing of a $20 million player in Philadelphia who is now available essentially free for the taking. My take is I don't think the Mets should touch Nick Castellanos with a 10-foot pole. The story came out yesterday that the reason he got benched the next game, he brought a beer into the dugout after after Thompson pulled him from the game, and he sat next to him in the dugout with the beer. Players, he claimed he didn't sip it, and the players took it away because that's obviously a no-no. And maybe you have any stories of a guy bringing a beer in the dugout, you feel free to share. But, there was also part of a story that came out, I believe The Athletic was talking about how kind of the end of the year when they win the division, he was kind of isolated. Like players weren't really around him celebrating, and it seemed like he wore out his welcome in Philadelphia. I have heard stories off the field not good about him. I live local to Philly. I know a decent amount of people here now. I've heard some not so good things about Castellanos as well. So to me, I have no interest. I also don't think he's that good anymore, Figgy. He's really like a 15 homer, 20 homer, maybe 70 homer, 70 RBI guy with an on base of under 300. I don't think he's even better than putting a Benj or even, to be honest, an MJ Melendez out there at this point. He's maybe slightly better than MJ Melendez. I don't think he's light years better. And, maybe he's better than Benj, but we just don't know. Benj could end up being a star. We don't know yet. So my opinion, Figgy, even though it's free and you do technically have somewhat of an opening in right field, I'm going to pass on Nick Castellanos.
Yeah, no, I think the same. I think Nick Castellanos, before he went to Philadelphia, was somebody that was on my radar because he was kind of that clutch player with the moxie that you wanted, that, a Jesse Winker, being able to, talk it and back it up. That kind of player. That's what we saw in Nick Castellanos, and I liked him for all that. And then you realize the defensive liability he was in right field, where they would have to play him literally with his back against the wall. So you only have to run in on balls and not have to go in a different direction. There's a reason why guys get released, and it goes well beyond the back of their baseball card. And when they get to this point in their career and they are, causing a stir in the wrong direction, you definitely don't want that. When it comes to having alcohol in the dugout, it's been done for years, but normally at all-star games, if you're not playing and you're out there, it's not commonly done. So that's, disappointing to hear, because all you have to do is wait nowadays 2 hours and 30 minutes before you can have a beer. For me, yeah, I'll pass. I'd rather see the promise, the wide-eyed look in Benj's eyes as I saw him on day one in uniform for picture day. They were taking the rookies' pictures, doing photo shoots and stuff like that. And here he is in the clubhouse. Everybody else is in shorts and T-shirts on report day, and he's in a full uniform. And I turned to him and I said, "Well, how's that feel?" And he had the biggest of smiles, and he's like, "Feels really good." So this kid is hungry. He sees his name in every publication. He's hearing his name a lot. Hopefully he can deal with that kind of pressure. But I mean, I liken it to when we saw Michael Conforto first come up. The swing was so sweet that it was like, yeah, this kid has to play, kind of thing. So I've seen him out there. I've seen him against, Nolan McLean. I've seen him, against Christian Scott the other day. And, he seems to be the real deal. He makes adjustments in his swing. He doesn't have a one-plane swing. He's not a guy that's going to chase a lot. But for a lot of these young kids, it's the amount of games, it's the amount of at-bats. A guy like Tong hasn't thrown over 100 innings in a year before. Last year, his first time. And, you could definitely see he was tired towards the end, and that's not his fault. As a pitcher, you're trying to do everything you can to get to the major leagues. And then when they put you in the major leagues and you're running on fumes, you're going to have some good days, you're going to have some bad days. And he at least learned from that. Right now, the Mets rotation, there's 6 guys ahead of him, at least, so he gets some more seasoning down in AAA and be able to be ready when his name's called. But for a guy like Benj, like you said, with the Castellanos, I'd rather see that. You look at Brett Beatty needs a place to play as well. You got Tyrone Taylor, who goes out there and plays. He's a center fielder by nature, but, would do a great job patrolling right as well. So, and you never know. Stranger things have happened. I do believe I've been saying for quite some time, there's a right fielder somewhere that always gets in the rumors that they could possibly trade. And if they have all these great prospects that they have no room for, I think they should keep calling San Diego until they hang up on them.
Yeah, I just don't think they're going to take on Tatis's contract. It's $300 million. I know they can afford it, but
$24 million for 9 years. $24 million for a player of that caliber. You were paying 20. You were paying 20 for Brandon Nimmo.
I don't think it's
right?
24. I think maybe you're right.
But it jumps up. It jumps up, and I think this year it's still in that 24 range.
Yeah. Well, that's my 20, 25.7, 25.7. Then it goes to 36.7, 36.7, 36.7, 36.7, 36.7, 36.7. It's not crazy. I mean, he's great, but you're already at $400 million payroll.
You just said he's great, but
I mean, he's had a couple down years. It's not like he's been the normal Tatis lately.
What were his numbers last year?
Pulling on right now. I mean, 25 and 71. I mean, that's similar to Nick Castellanos, to be honest. Like it's
not. I'm sorry. Did he also win a Gold Glove?
Yes. Here. Let me give you his last 3 years, because to me, it's not worth it if he's going to hit like he's hit the last 3 years. 25 and 71, 21 and 49, 25 and 78. On base of 322, 340, 360. He has not. Figgy had a great year since 2021 before the PED suspension year.
Nah, and you'll see afterwards. Again, with him, it's always been him and Machado didn't mix because Machado was playing the veteran and he was the young punk. Remember those videos of him getting pushed around? Then you had Juan Soto came in, and then you had Xander Bogaerts. Talking about $300 million players there, and then the guy who is going to be the highest paid player. So I think there was an ego thing going on for a while, but he's more in terms of the position change as well. when they put him into right field. That took a little while to get comfortable with. There's nothing I don't think not to like about a Tatis. I know they're not. It's a pipe dream
I
to
mean, we
think of
love a
it.
spicy rumor here on Mets Daily, so bring the heat. We love it. I don't think he's that much of a superstar. I think his name, maybe the sex appeal, he's a superstar. But in terms of the numbers to me, post PED, and that's where the big thing is. Like, did the cheating actually play a big factor? Is that why he hit those 40 homers? Because three straight years he's done. And listen, he's still in his prime. Like, I'm not saying he
Mhm.
can't get back to that. He's 27
Right.
years old. Like, he's still got a long ways to go. So maybe he gets back to that player. It probably is a fit in this clubhouse. Like Soto, Robert would probably love him, but I don't see it. I don't see it.
Yeah. Just to put what you just said in perspective, but Bo Bichette is $42 million a year, more than Aaron Judge worth.
Well, it's a 1 year. It's essentially a 1 year deal. It's not 10
But
years. It's not.
still 42 million.
It's a lot.
42.
But he's coming off a World Series appearance. Fernando Tatis hasn't sniffed the World Series.
42. He didn't play the whole playoffs. He played in the World Series.
And he looked good.
42. I know, no doubt. And he had the Kirk Gibson little hobble. You knew he had a bad knee, but that swing was unbelievable. Is that swing worth $42 million? 42. And it's not 1 year if he wants to stay in, because who else is going to pay him $42 million a year?
Listen, the
It's
Dodgers
3
are
years.
paying Kyle Tucker $118 million after the taxes. $118 million for 1 year after the tax, just for this year.
So don't talk about the financials. I don't know if they could make it. They want to make it fit. They can make it fit.
They can afford it, but do they want to take on 10 years? 10 years is a lot. They're committing a bunch to Soto already. I don't think they.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. How many years are the Dodgers committed to the core of their team?
I mean, we're talking about Shohei Ohtani. He's a generational player.
Keep going. You're
mean-
talking about Yamamoto. You're talking about they've got. I believe there's 8 guys or 9 guys that are going to be signed all the way through 2032.
But they win. They have won championships. The Mets haven't brought that winning pedigree yet. They got to win for. Maybe Tatis helps them get there. I just don't think.
So was the winning happened first, or the signings happened first, and then the winning happened?
What happens if Carson Bench ends up putting up better numbers than Fernando Tatis? Not saying he will, but what if he does?
Name me, including Michael Conforto, the last Met homegrown hitter that is, outfielder. Sorry, outfielder that has hit the ground running and never looked back, and has been a superstar.
There's always a first, Figgy. There's always a first.
No, and hey, listen, I love Bench. I think he's.
Do you think he's the
kid.
starting right fielder opening day? Well, gun to your head now. What's your prediction? Is he starting right fielder opening day, or who do you think is the starting right fielder opening day?
I think he's literally going to get every opportunity to win that job. It's his job to lose. When you look at his upside.
So you think if he looks competent in spring training, he wins the job?
He's played right field before. He's played center field before. So again, you're talking about a center fielder playing right field. It's a little bit, easier, especially when you have a Gold Glove center fielder being able to cover for any inefficiencies that you may have moving left to right. I think part of the Soto move was it made sense a lot to the Mets and the way that they were constructed. Like, they were looking for left fielders. They were looking for a left fielder to plug in there. And we kept hearing, several different names. There was nobody that was jumping off the page. Now, if you look at right fielders that, could be possibly available and what they had in-house, they felt like it was a better move to put Soto in left and have, someone else in right. So I think from all things that I've seen thus far, he's the one that's going to stand out. And unless he really, just is blown away by spring training pitching and spring training games, then you should see him being there till the very last day.
Yeah, I think it's the bat we're talking about here. Is the bat ready? This is a guy who's not had a lot of AAA experience, did not really necessarily look very good in AAA. So the question is, can the bat stand the test of time? We know the arm. We've heard about he's got a cannon. I think defensively and right, he's going to be great. I'm just concerned, is the bat ready for big league pitching yet? And I'm not a big watch spring training guy, but he is the one guy I'll really be watching for. I want to see how his bat, because I haven't watched a lot of him. I want to
Mhm.
see the bat against Major League pitching, and I don't look into spring training stats at all. But he's one guy I want to see when it's all said and done in March 26th, when Paul Skeens takes off against Freddie Peralta, and Jake's at his 23rd straight home opener with Papa Brown, days before moving back to save Gotham to the Big Apple. I want to see if Carson because listen, Tyrone Taylor would not be exciting. I have some intrigue with MJ Melendez because he is in his prime. He is 27, and he has been a guy who hit 18, 20 homers. He is a guy that is an emergency catcher if you need him as a third catcher, which is cool to have as an outfielder catcher. Those just don't exist in this sport. So you have a guy who's played catcher as well. And we know with Alvarez's injuries that there's going to be a chance they're going to need another backup. And why not go to Melendez instead of calling up an Austin Barnes or a Kevin Parada? I think it makes a lot of sense. Or Hayden Sanger, fresh off his shift stocking shelves at Whole Foods. So I know I didn't belong in Whole Foods, by the way, when I said, dude, where's the Diet Coke? They said, you fat ass, we don't have soda. I was like, I'm never coming back here again.
Never be here again.
I've been called Poppy. I'm not drinking Poppy. That's what we're doing here. You never know where we're going to go here on Mets Daily.
Never know.
But yeah, I mean, I hope he wins. I'd be fine if Melendez for the first month is the right fielder and Taylor, but I think we all love Tyrone Taylor the person. We love Tyrone Taylor the defender, but do we love Tyrone Taylor the bat? Not really. And I think it's important that the bottom of the order they have a complete lineup because it was a very top heavy lineup last year, and the Mets want to avoid that. We talked about Francisco Lindor, Figgy. 6 weeks puts an opening day. Maybe you know more about the hamate bone. I've read stuff. I heard stuff. I know Alvarez had it. I know, it does affect the power. Like there is a good chance Francisco Lindor is not hitting 30 homers this year. There is a good chance he misses opening day. There's a good chance he does come back opening day just because he is Francisco Lindor. Someone had commented on the show the other day, Figgy, and said, I think this is saving face because he's not playing in the WBC. I'm like, what? He wanted to play. That was like an insurance issue. It's killing him probably inside not to play. These guys all want to play for their country. And you pitch for Puerto Rico, like how big of a deal it is. So would love you to touch on that WBC coming up and you pitch for Puerto Rico, that experience, how cool that is for some of these players that are pitching it or playing in it, like a Soto for DR and Clay Holmes for US and McClain for US. Also Lindor, the injury, and whether you think he'll be back opening day.
WBC first is a tremendous experience. It's playoff atmosphere, baseball, double elimination tournament, like when you were a kid. So the vibes and the atmosphere is win or go home, and you get a chance to show what you are capable of doing against major league caliber talent. This is the biggest pool of major league players playing in it ever. This is the most all-stars playing in it ever. This is the biggest, it's never been bigger, and the Team USA has overstocked their team to the point where normally you would sit there and go, "Oh, that's not fair." And then what we know about is baseball is baseball, and any given night, some little 36-year-old journeyman can wow the world and find a way to beat those guys. And so those are the memories that you wind up making and having an opportunity to make with people that you share the commonality of, country pride. And it may not be you, maybe your grandparents. Look at Austin Wells catching for the Dominican, but he did it. I'm sure he was giddy about it. Like, look at the team that I'm about to catch. Look at these guys I'm about to play with. It's all the who's who of Dominican baseball and Austin Wells. So I think everybody wanted to play, Lindor especially, because the kind of player he is, and the pride that he takes when he's putting on that Puerto Rico uniform. Talking about guys that are selfless. Remember, they had 3 shortstops. And who was going to play shortstop? And both the other 2 guys bowed out and said, we'll play second and third, and Baez and Correa. And then you had 3 shortstops playing in the infield there. And I don't think anybody was like, oh, they've never played there before. They're not going to be able to do much of anything. They were exciting. They were flamboyant. Lindor's definitely missing out on that. It had nothing to do with, he had an elbow procedure, in the off season. The insurance wasn't going to cover if anything happened because he was recovering from a surgery that was less than a year old. So that hadn't been tested, in game play. And so, of course, insurance companies, that's what they get paid to do. And so all the, stories about Bad Bunny was going to pay the insurance and everything else, it had nothing to do with the Mets. The Mets weren't even asked about the possibility of doing that. It came down to Lindor, the MLBPA, and the insurance companies all saying that right now it was in the best interest to pass on, putting in that insurance claim for him to play if something were to happen because he hadn't tested it in games or anything. So that's one of those things that, it was unfortunate for Team Puerto Rico. It makes it harder. You see all these other teams really beefing up. But then it also makes it exciting. You might see a new kid you've never seen before have an opportunity. Eddie Rosario, famously, when I played, he was playing in place of Carlos Beltran because he had the bad back, but he was DHing. And Eddie Rosario got a chance to play. He was a double-A kid that nobody had heard of. And next thing you know, he goes on and has a 10-year big league career and is a World Series champion. So that's what this tournament is about, is going out there and showing how widespread the game of baseball is all over the globe, and the best of the best get to play in the major leagues, of course. So the best 750, well, more now because it's 26, but the best 800 players in the world get to play in the big leagues. But for at least the 2-3 weeks of the tournament, you get to see how you stack up and what you're capable of doing, and open up some eyes for an opportunity to play further on. I'm excited for McLean, all those guys. Like I said, Team USA is stacked, and they should really fare well in this tournament this time around. What was the other one?
The Lindor injury. You think he's back opening day?
I do, because it's different than Alvarez. Because remember, Alvarez was catching 100-mile-an-hour fastballs with that same hand. Lindor has to feel ground balls. There's some trepidation, of course, because you don't think about a hamate bone when it comes to fielding. It's not something that bothers you, but where the hamate bone is it's the little hinging bone in right before your wrist, and it's not necessary. So what happens is when it gets irritated, gets fractured, there's a stress reaction, there's a small break, they remove it. If you look at the game of operation, when you were a kid, that's the bone you're removing, is the hamate bone. It says it right. So that's one of the things, is that once you remove it, it doesn't feel like anything else. It just, it may be a little bit weakened because it doesn't have the breaking power that you normally have, and you don't feel it. Most of the guys used to tell me it was on check swings that they would feel it. It wasn't on contact. It would be on check swings. And so ramping up baseball activity, 10 days of stitches, they take the stitches out, and they'll immediately start trying, doing some range of motion stuff and just trying to feel. But as far as baseball activity, like, the guy will put in as many reps as he needs to be ready. And you really question if Lindor needs how many reps to be ready to start playing. The at-bat thing is going to be a question to see how quickly he can get to swinging a bat with comfortably. I say I wouldn't bet against it. I wouldn't bet against it, but I would always err on the side of caution when it comes to anything like that, because you don't want some kind of compensation to cause something else to get flared up. He's coming off a procedure on his left elbow, not too long ago as well. So this is one of those situations where I'm erring on the side of caution. They've got some in-house options that they can play at shortstop in the meanwhile, which this is one of the things about spring training. Things always shake out, whether it's injuries, trades, guys, just performance-wise. So, this is a great opportunity again for somebody to step up, and it may be a short-term thing, but there's no need to panic and say, oh my God, you need a shortstop, or even talk about moving Bo Bichette over and filling third base back with Vientos. If you're going to go in with the Bo Bichette experience, let him get all the reps at third base. And if he has to slide over, he could comfortably slide over, because that's, a natural thing for him. But I think as of right now, they're going to be just fine. And everybody's pulling for Lindor to be ready for opening day.
You just said 3 words that lead me to my next topic, and I'll put them in song form, and they go,
oh my,
oh my God. You said, oh my God, and the name has come up with Lindor and an injury. Would it hurt for the Mets to sign Candelito, Jose Iglesias? And he's the guy now. Internally, you have Ronnie Mauricio and Vidal Brujan, but I mean, listen, fans wanted Starling Marte back for the vibes. I want OMG back for the vibes. I mean, there was no question he was the guy that helped the Mets get to the almost promised land of 2024. He
Yeah.
doesn't need to be that now. He just needs to be a fill-in, and then if they got to cut him, they cut him. Why not have his smile there and spring training and have him there? I mean, I don't know if there's really a spot for him, but any
Right.
thoughts of the Mets signing Candelita back?
Not really, because I just think that he knows it's a different vibe for him as well because he knows he's on borrowed time. He knows it's going to get pulled away from him. They're not going to shake up and move somebody else unless who knows. Remember he hit over 300 with almost 400 with runners in scoring position. He had the year of all years that year while being a pop star, while having a #1 song. All that stuff couldn't possibly be duplicated, right? And he went over to San Diego and he had some good moments, but his playing time was scarce as well. And so I don't know. I think we love our fan favorites, and it's a great thing to because we saw what that team did. That team seemed to find every vibe, every wave, and ride it to the next one. Right? It was something. As soon as they would slow down, oh, here comes Grimace throwing out the first. Oh, we're slowing down. Here comes Haktua girl. Here we're slowing down. Everything seemed to be it was picking up steam and just keep getting to the playoffs, and they did, and they rode it all the way to the National League Championship Series, till Game 6 against the Dodgers. So that's all fun, and I think what we learned about David Stearns thus far is, and don't take this the wrong way, he doesn't give a damn what the fans think. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, I
they're
mean,
gonna show
when
up
you
and they're
listen to
gonna
the fans,
support.
you sit with the fans. That's what they say.
Yeah, but here's the thing. He has sat with the fans most of his life, and then now he's in the front office making those decisions, and sometimes they're hard decisions, but I don't think he sits there doing it with a we have to have this player because the fans. I think the fans are gonna love winning. The fans are gonna love, they hopefully they understand the ups and downs, right? This is year 3 of David Stearns as well as Mendoza, and you went from an unbelievable first year, and a second year where the collapse. We famously talk about 2007 and 2008 as collapses. You talk about a half a season worth of collapse, and how do you not only put a band-aid on that earlier, but find a way to have the surgery. You might have to amputate the foot to save the leg. That we saw last year was gangrene coming from the toes, and you could see it, and it just kept creeping up and led you to the last day. And I had asked David Stearns, is there any one regret looking back, that a decision that you wish you made sooner? Because the fact of the matter is, if you would have called up these kids, the pitchers, just 1 week earlier, they'd probably make the playoffs. And then everything is a moot point about the disaster or the way that it ended. You're looking at you finished out by 1 game, and so just bringing up these kids, even Nolan McLean, you saw he was dominating for like 15 straight starts, and you talked about how the stuff was plus plus plus. And if you had that kind of belief in him and you knew that about him, how do you not bring that guy up just 1 week earlier? And he said, it's a process of looking back and reflecting, and whether it's a good season or a bad season, what could I have done better? He's like, and those are internal thoughts and conversations I have with myself, and I put down some notes, and he's like, yeah, of course, but we move forward, or else we live in the past. So that's the kind of mentality that David Stearns has. Is he decided, what, it's time to move forward. The core no more, and the core snore, or whatever you want to call them. He decided to move on from that, and I think as long as they're winning, the fans will be just as happy.
And then he became a demon on that 1 week in January and just went ham. And then you have me posting videos at the "He's Done Miracles on Me," the Kanye song. And yeah, it's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. Let's hit on a couple more quick topics. So no Candelita, no Castellanos. Zach Gallen is still out there. Now, the issue with Zach Gallen is you got to give up 2 draft picks, including a potential top pick to potentially in the first round to get him. The Mets have already given up a few picks in order to sign Bichette. Do they want to give up more picks to get Gallen? I think Gallen's good. I think he's had a good career coming off a bad year. Doesn't make any sense for the Mets. It feels like they're done, but is there an icing on the cake kind of move in signing Zach Gallen to complete what would end up probably being like a super rotation?
Yeah, if you look around baseball, there's 29 other GMs and teams that are holding pat as well, right? There's a reason for it. And if it has to be tied with the draft pick, so be it. Zach Gallen was never he's pitched very, very well. Don't get me wrong. Zach Gallen has pitched very, very well, but he seems to have curtailed off of the original Zach Gallen that came up to the big leagues and was able to throw his changeup in every single count. And now people realize the ratio of changeup, all those numbers pop up on the screen now before these guys have their at bats, and they know exactly what to look for, how to look for, and he hasn't fared nearly as well. There's a reason why he's out there still. I don't see them looking for that unless 3 injuries happen, because right now they feel like in-house as far as pitchers, even though they traded Sproat, they feel like Jonah Tong is right there on the cusp. Christian Scott, the way he was throwing the other day, man, it looked vintage Christian Scott, and he's added some stuff to his repertoire. You know, I think they are proud of what they have in-house and not afraid to maybe do it a different way this year than what we saw last year. Um, and I had actually talked to Mendoza about 50 pitchers in uniform. Like, what was that like, and how did you avoid that again this year? And he said, we made conscious decisions in the offseason to get guys. There's a lot of, and we've seen this too, right? There's a lot of reclamation projects here. Guys that have had injuries or coming off injuries who have had success before, been all-stars before. Carl Edwards Jr. is down there. You got Craig Kimbrell down there. You've got a lot of guys who have major league experience, and you're not saying, who's this guy? Dickey Richard Lovelady? Like, you're not looking for the names and where this guy ever came from. And it's a great story. This guy drove his own Uber to the game today. That's not what we're looking for anymore. And so I think after the debacle of last year's pitching staff, both the starters and relievers, they have quality depth. AJ Minter's, going to be back at some point this year. Brooks Raley is going to be back. Those are the things that you look at, and whether it's a starting rotation piece. Right now, I said they have 6 starters on paper that are going to start the season. They even talked about a 6-man rotation already, and the laughter was, everything always shakes out in spring training. Someone, is probably going to get hurt or need more time. And in the long run, if they have to have a 6-man rotation and kind of, rotate it through who gets the rest, that's an option as well. So the thing that I think we learned about David Stearns is he likes his options.
Yeah,
They
well,
like their
he's got
options.
Tobias Meyer stretching out to probably be that 7,
Yeah.
and the guy you said that, and I've mentioned him too, that we shouldn't forget about. Christian Scott's just waiting in the wings to do something. I think he's
Yeah.
going to start in the minors because he's been pitched for
Yeah.
a year. But Christian Scott is like your 8th starter, so technically you could have 8 starting pitchers. Now, like you said, it always works out. There always ends up being a starting pitcher injury. I don't even need to knock on wood. It's going to happen. I hate to say it, but it will probably happen. I just hope it's not one of the key guys, but. You
Yeah.
have 8 starters. I guess if Gallen or, a guy that I've kept on my mind, Lucas Giolito, because of Willard coming from the Red Sox and him working with him and Giolito coming off a great year, if he's still available and if someone was lost to an injury, Lucas Giolito's a guy you could probably get on a 1-year, $18 million deal like Chris Bassett just got. By the way, mid-show here, the Blue Jays, another addition to them, I mean, not a great player, but a solid player, have acquired Jesus Sanchez from the Astros for outfielder Joey Loperfido. So another bat to the Blue Jays lineup. That's going to be a juggernaut team. I think they're going to definitely win the division as the run it back Yankees. I mean, how about the Yankees, by the way, tweeting Paul Goldschmidt's like accolades like he did them like last year. Like, we've re-signed an 8-time All-Star, 4-time Gold Glove winner. I'm like, calm down. He's 39 years. I like Paul Goldschmidt, but we don't need to tweet about his accolades and make it like that was a big offseason move. All right, let's do. We've gone a while here. I got 1 or 2 more things to hit, then we'll let you go. I wanted to hit Mark Vientos. His role to me is very mysterious this season. Like, it to me looks like a part-time DH against left-hand pitching, because there is a good chance Brett Beatty is your DH against righties. Like, maybe they play Beatty sometimes against lefties and put him in right field. But to me, it feels like Beatty is against righties, Vientos against lefties. I've always said, people make fun of me for it. why not trade Mark Vientos and a prospect and go get Yandy Diaz? You know, Yandy Diaz to me is the icing on the cake to the Mets offseason and really gives them another bat that you push Polanco down to 5. You have Lindor, Yandy, Soto, Bichette, Polanco form one of the best 1 through 5s in baseball. I don't know if he's available from the Rays to trade, but the Rays have traded Lowe, Lau, and everyone between that. I feel like they're open for business, and Yandy Diaz is their most expensive player. They're a team that's been famous for cutting money. Why would they not want Mark Vientos for essentially free to do the same thing, be their DH,
Yeah.
and do it for the long term for zero money? It's a trade that almost makes too much sense. That all being said, I'm sure you agree that you would love Yandy too, as someone who's watched him for a while.
Mhm.
Do you see Mark Vientos being here opening day, or do you see him being traded before the season?
I think there's only you're not just going to give Mark Vientos away the promise of what he's capable of doing. It would be like just giving Alvarez away. We saw 24 home runs in his rookie season, and you know the swagger and everything else. His catching has gotten better behind home plate. We see the catch and throw ability. We're seeing a lot of different things from Alvarez, but we haven't seen that power return unless it was in the minor leagues where he hit 11 home runs in like 14 games. So in a very similar situation to what he's always been in, is having to prove himself, right? Having to prove himself to make that major league roster. And when it comes to roster flexibility and everything else, and I believe he has an option left somehow, some way. Um, and if that's the problem, would you see him being sent down to AAA? Or traded if he is out of options. It's going to go down to the end. And yeah, again, Yandy Diaz makes a lot of sense. But then what do you do with Jorge Polanco? You just paid $20 million a year to, like he's going to be a $20 million utility man and fill in. So then that move doesn't make
Well,
sense.
Polanco
So
could be your DH, and Yandy could be first, and you could just switch them back and forth.
yeah, you can flip flop them back and forth. I mean, there's a multitude of things that you can do, and yes, they love the idea of being able to do that. Plus, you got to be able to. These guys aren't playing 162. So the idea that Bo Bichette's going to play 162 games at third base, get that out of your mind right now. You're trying to keep Bo Bichette as healthy as possible for as long as possible.
To
So
me,
if he
Bo
plays,
Bichette being your 162 game DH makes so much more sense. They're not going to do it because they're paying him 42 million, Figgy. But teaching him a new position, risking him getting hurt in the field, his bat is so valuable that to me, just forget about the money you paid him and just throw him in the lineup every single day for 162 at DH.
yeah, but at $42 million, when you wouldn't pay Pete Alonso, who would have been a DH for $30 million, I mean, it doesn't make sense. So I think you're looking at Bo Bichette. You're going to give him every opportunity to try and get off his feet, and a DH. When it's against maybe some lefties, because the at bats are the important part, right? You get some of these other guys playing time. You can't have these kids sitting around doing nothing. If you're talking about Mauricio Beatty and Vientos, and technically they're all third basemen. Mauricio playing short, he's a guy that can play some shortstop for you as well. That's one of the good, the bad, and the ugly right now, because the baby Mets aren't being touted on and being applauded to be that next wave coming up. They decided to go with a different vibe of major league ready, major league free agents, and guys that can help, boost that lineup now, and not worrying about week to week, which hot guy we're going to play or give the at bats to. So I think that's one of the things that Mendoza likes, is that there's more of a less penciling guys in and more of a steady top 4, 5, 6, or even if you put somebody at 9 every day that is going to be at the 9 spot, but being able to mix that other part of it and get guys playing time. That's the juggling. That's where the manager, the front office, the analytics team all come into play with this thing. There's a guy that's mapping out exactly how much playing time a guy gets, and they're looking at different metrics of his running to first base. If it's taking him a little bit longer, I mean, he's a little tired. Let's get him out of there. Whether he gets a full day off or DHs, you got guys that are going to be called upon to try to be clutch hitters, like a Mark Vientos coming off the bench to face a lefty in the 8th and 9th inning and be ready to do that. So there's a lot of different variables that are going to go into this, and we can sit here and fantasize about some really cool things that they could do. I think that if the opportunity presents itself and it makes sense for the team, we know David Stearns isn't afraid to pull the trigger to make this team better.
Yeah, and I think especially on that, if there is an injury, the rotation front, I think that Mark Vientos for either Mitch Keller or Bubba Chandler trade happens. That's been rumored with the Pirates. I think that is the trade that probably makes sense for both sides. If it's Keller, the Mets got to eat Keller's contract. The Pirates would be glad to get rid of any money they could. They just signed domestic violence man Marcel Ozuna, alleged. Although I think that I don't know if that was alleged. It might have been actual. I
That
think
wasn't working.
it was real. Yeah, yeah. Not a great guy. So enjoy Marcell Ozuna, but he's in Pittsburgh, so he'll have some Permanente bros and have a good time hitting homers there. But that trade, if you get Bubba Chandler, I mean, Vientos and a prospect and get Bubba Chandler, and Mets would do that in a heartbeat. I just don't see a role for Vientos, and he's already pissed off when he played part-time last year. Imagine playing once or twice in the big leagues this year. You're going to hear the complaints from him. It's not going to be a good look in the clubhouse. And, in some ways, I don't blame him for being mad, but I think the Mets should do what's best for Mark Vientos and send him to a team that he can play every day. And if he went somewhere like Pittsburgh, I'm certain there's going to be a spot for him to get in that line in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he's so there's another thing that's very different about the Mets clubhouse. Normally in a clubhouse, you have the stars on one end and the rookies on the other end, right? And you have the way that it's set up, you kind of see the writing on the wall of like the trickle down effect of who's going to be getting sent down each week is a natural progression, because then the clubhouse gets smaller, the guys get tighter, and then that circle becomes a little bit smaller, that they can have conversations and hang out and get to know each other a little bit better. Mark Vientos' locker is right next to Bo Bichette's. They're next to each other. These guys are, and I think the third locker is either a rookie or someone new. So in every locker, there seems to be a purpose to why they're putting guys like that, to get to know each other, to talk, to share information, those kinds of things, and to make people comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. For Mark Vientos, like I said, I know that life. I know that life of every spring training, having to prove yourself just to make that team. And then you think you had a good enough season, and then you have a bad season, and you're like, just all right, they went out and got someone to replace me. Now what's going to happen? Well, you got to go and ball out, make a difficult decision. Make them trade someone else, make them use other guys. Remember, they could trade Mauricio, they could trade Beatty. Mauricio has going from is that he can play shortstop at least, and fill in for Lindor until he comes back. So I think when you look at it from both sides, they like their players, they like Beatty and Vientos, but it became a situation where Bo Bichette and his willingness to move to third and put that bat in the lineup every day, that major league veteran presence every day, winning pedigree, born into the major leagues with his dad playing. You like everything about the kid. The biggest swing in Toronto since Joey Bats slamming the bat down, and that kind of swagger, that kind of big moment ability to step up in the clutch is something that's surely needed. You can't replace Pete and his 40 home runs and 125 RBIs easily. But I mean, if you put the right pieces together and you don't have the deficiencies at that bottom of the lineup, but a 20 and a 20 equals 40, right? As long as that guy is, would you have out of Cedric Mullins, Tyrone Taylor, and everybody else? 3 home runs on the season. So I'm pretty sure that that's going to be covered nicely by Luis Robert and everyone else involved. So the bottom line is this: the Mets are deeper than they've been. They're more athletic than they've been. They got younger, way younger. Even though Simeon's 35, they got way younger all the way around. Talk about Bo Bichette being the prime of his career, only 27 years old. Soto is a very old man at 28 right now.
Peralta, 29. MJ Melendez, 27. I mean, not that he's a big factor, but yeah, they definitely got much younger across the board. Last one, because we're almost at it. This is the longest show in Mets daily history. Shocker, it's me and you, the longest show. And I know you got to head out to the field. I just want to know: is this team winning the NL East? Do the projections, I think, say the Braves are, with the Mets second and the Phillies third? I think the Phillies have gotten much worse. They've had a terrible offseason. The Braves have definitely gotten better, but to me, I think this Mets overall team is the best in the division. I think they win the division. What say you?
I think they do as well. I think they've learned, the front office also has learned about that ups and downs, and when these streaks get to 30 game, when you go to your comps and you're like, all right, the last 30 games were really terrible, shake it up. Shake it up and do something different. Don't just try and put it back out there and hope that it writes itself. And I think with the caliber of players and people that they have in that locker room, they'll be able to do that, and guys' willingness to do that. Again, Polanco wasn't a star in Seattle, but he was a clutch player who made the most of his opportunities. Bichette, he's a guy that the Yankees should have signed, quite frankly. But at $42 million a year, the Mets wowed him into that contract. And who could say no to that? Because at the least it's 3 years, and then he's hitting the market at 30, but he's got 146 million in the bank. So I applaud them for kind of jumping out on that. I just think all the way around, it's a different vibe because you don't have superstars. Even Soto's willingness to say, "Hey, you know what? I'm playing a lot of left with the WBC and working out with the WC, and I've been working out at left because I know I was going to play left." You know, and he's played left before. He's played left when he had to play in San Diego with Tatis. He played 6 games in left with the Yankees. Aaron Judge was playing center when Soto was playing right. But then, when the Martian, I don't even know his name anymore, Dominguez came up. They Dominguez's 8 games of fury or whatever it was. Soto wound up playing left that year a little bit. And so it's a position that he played when he came up. Bryce Harper was the right fielder. He played left field. So this is where you're talking about this kid has done it before. He's the highest paid player in all of sports. And yet he said in a conversation, I'm willing to do whatever the team needs. If it's left field, then make it left field. And I think, despite the slow start to his Mets career, the stolen bases, the dealing with everything, dealing with that contract. Pedro Martinez famously said that it took him a while when he was the highest paid pitcher to shake that notion. Like everybody's dart was he wasn't worth the money, and until you saw Soto kind of hit his stride, and then all of a sudden you see him take off, and the kid was almost 40-40 with a terrible first 2 months. So I think I'm loving everything about this team. I'm loving the fact that the coaching staff is comprised of some different people with different elements that are willing to also be not only the infield coach but the bench coach. They're not only the base running coach but the outfield coach. There's guys that are doing multiple roles to try and keep that. I would say the conversations and the continued discussions easier to maintain along. Everybody has the same message.
It's interesting. Pitchers and catchers reported Wednesday. Full squad reports on Monday on President's Day. And then games start next weekend. And I'm ready to go. I'm fired up. Let's go. Get me baseball. Get me in the sun. Get me back at City. Get me back eating a lobster roll. Get me a vodka soda with a splash of cran. Let's go. I'm fired up. Oh, yeah, we're ready to go. NL East champion, your 2026 NL East champion, New York Mets. He's Nelson Figueroa at FiggyNY. Picks 11, New York nightcap at 11 o'clock. He's down in Florida. He's headed to the Yankees next to Tampa. Great city. I almost moved to Tampa at one point. I got offered a job in Tampa the day after I got my current job, and I already accepted this, so I couldn't say yes to that. But one day you might find me living in Tampa. But in the end, all roads lead to the Big Apple, baby. And all roads lead to amazing but true reunions every month, once a month, like a you-know-what. Welcome back. Appreciate you coming on the show. Have a great weekend. Happy Friday the 13th. Hit that thumbs up on Mets Daily. Subscribe, comment below, and we'll talk to you next week.